What's up? Crowie here, Sparky Coach podcast, coming at ya, coming into your van, coming into your ute. Are you a van person or a ute person? A dual cab? I was always a van person. Someone calls them the mobile skip in. But this is 50 Cent or 50 Cent in the club series. The greatest song of all time, the greatest song of the millennium. What is your greatest song of the millennium? I don't even know if I have one, but yesterday we were listening to Jasper asked for some rock music, my little 5-year-old, put on some Bruce Springsteen, and he was frothing. He's like, that song again, that song again, that song again. And how good's the boss? Bit of Bruce Springsteen. And I hope you're feeling like the boss. Maybe not feeling like Bruce Springsteen, because that'd be pretty weird, unless you're one of those impersonators. But maybe you are feeling not like the boss. Maybe you're feeling like, oh, your company feels out of control, you feel disheveled, you feel disorganized, you feel disorientated, you feel frustrated, you feel like a lack of connection between the business and yourself, or you feel a total connection between the business and yourself, and there is no separation, and it's just like, I go to work at 6 and I come home at 6 and I maybe have some cold chicken schnitzel, God bless chicken schnitzel, and then I open the computer from 8 till 11 and repeat. And just the business wasn't, it's not meant to be overtaking your life. I'm not saying you're not meant to work hard, but the difference between hard work and sometimes hard work can be a disguise, a distraction. So sometimes you can work really hard, but it's like maybe you're not working very smart. Or sometimes you can work really hard and it's like, well, maybe you're just a little bit disorganized. Well, maybe you have no boundaries. Maybe you're lacking, maybe you need some work hour boundaries. Just to our members today, we ran a session and someone was asking me my final thoughts, and we had this sort of like open question and answer where you can ask anything you want in a safe place, and there's no judgment. There's a little bit of judgment, but not much judgment, just some judgment, just a little bit of judgment, just chotto judgment if you are in fact from Spain, or maybe that's Japanese, I don't know, whatever. But like there's no judgment here. This is a zero judgment space. But they're saying, what do you reckon about, what's your final thoughts? And I was like, one of the biggest things that you want to hit in your trade business, in your Sparky business, in your office, in your admin land is some discipline. Like, okay, I want to start at here, maybe it's 7, maybe it's 8, and I want to finish here. Maybe it's 4, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 3, whatever. You need discipline to set some work hours. Now, the classic age-old example is this. I go to work at 7. Start work at 7, I work till 3, till 4, till 5, whatever. I come home. If you've got kids or no kids, I'm going to go a kid analogy here. You go into bed, bath, dinner mode from 5 till 7:30. You do some dishes after that. Maybe put the dishwasher on. Maybe you sweep up, and then you open the computer at 8:30, and then all of a sudden you stare blankly at the 8:30, and the whole day you've been living with this thought, I've got to get that quote done, got to get that thing done, got to get that paperwork sent off, got to get. The whole day you're living with this emotional weight, this like monkey on your back, this more like a rhino on your back, more like a hippo on your back, and all of a sudden you open the computer at 8:30, you look at it, and you're like, maybe look at some emails, maybe do something 45 minutes later, 60 minutes later, 90 minutes later, you're like, you know what, I'll just do it tomorrow. And in reality, what's happened is you've felt so busy, you carried around the weight of the world on your shoulders. I'll just do it tonight. 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 In reality, you worked 7 till 3, 8 till 4, 7 till 5, whatever, and you didn't really do any work post 5 o'clock, but because you carried the weight of doing something after hours, doing something out of hours, doing something after dinner, doing something after dishes, now all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm so busy. When reality, like, if you had a bit of discipline and be like, no, I'm going to work 8 till 5, 9 till 5, 7 till 4, whatever, shut down there. Now I can be present with my family, present with my friends, present while I'm cooking, present while I'm cleaning up. I can do something for myself after that. Maybe I'm reading a book. Maybe I'm watching something. It's kind of relevant. Maybe I'm in the sauna. Maybe I'm shirtless in the sauna. I don't know what you're doing. What are you doing with your after hours time? Maybe you're doing some non-PG related activity. I don't know what you're doing. And I don't want to know what you're doing. Maybe I want to know a little bit what you're doing, but not too much. Maybe like a little bit of detail, but not too much detail. Like just enough detail to keep me guessing what's actually happening behind closed doors, right? So it's like, I don't know what you're doing, but it's like if you shrunk your work hours back to say like 8 till 4, now all of a sudden it forces you to be productive in those times. I'm talking office here, for those of you who are referencing this to site work, or even site work as well. But if you shrink back your times, now all of a sudden you've got a reference point of a start and stop time, so you're not going forever. Now it's like, well, what can I get done in these 8 hours and these 10 hours? I can get done this, and this. And if I can't get that done, then guess what? It either doesn't happen, and if it's important to happen, maybe someone else can do it. Reference that to admin or field staff or whatever. But it's so important. If you set the boundaries, I think not only will you be more productive within those boundaries, those sort of start and finish times, you'll be more productive, you'll be more efficient, because you can't just trickle over to after hours. You can't, because you have a life to live outside of your business, right? And I'm not saying don't ever open the computer after hours. Sometimes I love opening the computer after hours. Sometimes I love, if I'm feeling inspired and I want to create something after, I will, because I want to. But if I'm not, I won't. So I really encourage everyone, if you set some boundaries, it'll show you what you can and can't get in. That'll show you what you can and can't do. That'll show you who you need to hire or what needs to happen. Admin, field, both. All good. All right, we're not even talking about that. Whoop-pow! Take that blessing for you. We're talking about 50 Cent part 8 tonight, or today, wherever you're listening, whatever. But talking about, I want to go back to, I think it was part 3 or 4. I've been hit with a few shells, but I don't walk with a limp. 50, right? And hit with a few. How many shells? 50. How many shells have you been hit with? My question is to you, how many shells have you been hit with? 1, 2, 3, 4? Seashells, she cells, or a real shell? A big dog shell. Anyway, okay, this is interesting, right? This is one of the most common things you see is a stressed business owner taking out their frustrations, care, or concerns, just whatever on their staff or on their clients. And I just think it's just never okay. There's certain things in life that just aren't okay. We know this. We've talked about this. And you just have to have some boundaries here. Like, it's not okay just to cross double lines, like when you're driving, right? It's not okay to swear loudly in public. It's not okay to walk nude down the street. Not in my town anyway. I don't know what town you're from, but there's certain things in life just aren't okay, and they are actually illegal. It's actually like, let's get some boundaries in here. But so it's like, just make a decision that no matter what's going on in my private world or work world, I'm not going to take my frustrations out upon staff, especially not staff, because they are the actual asset. You can have a big, or even clients, both, because they're both people. But we have to understand that, like, no matter the situation, we need to have some adult conversations, some big dog conversations. As I love to say, the big dog has to have the big dog conversations. If you want the big dog title, but don't want the big dog conversations, then you might not be the big dog. You might have to relinquish that title and be like, you know what, I'm just a medium-sized dog. Maybe I'm a small dog. Maybe you're a sausage dog. Shout out to Lockie and Megan on the Sunny Coast with a sausage dog, right? Sausage dogs, I don't get it. I got to be honest. I'm unsure about visually, like aesthetically. I'm unsure. Anyway, sausage dog. Maybe you're just a sausage dog. But if you want to be the big dog, you got to have some big dog conversations. You got to have them with care, with grace, with consistency. And I think, like, sometimes we can be hit with a few shells, like, fitties, maybe even hit with staff leaving, maybe even hit with like staff mistakes or callbacks, or being hit with whatever, insert issue here from a staff member, and you're walking with a limp, and that limp's starting to be like, gah, gah, brah, and the limp's starting to not just be a physical ailment, it's starting to come across to other people, and you're starting to be like careless with words, you're starting to be raising your voice, you're starting to be aggressive or passive aggressive, which is just as bad in my opinion, or you're starting to be like bottle things up until a point where it's going to explode. So I want to encourage you, the big dog has to have the big dog conversations. If someone's there at 7:05, what are you going to do? You're going to be like, hey, we start at 7. You're going to be like, hey, is this the afternoon shift or what, right? Like, what were you doing? Putting your boots on with laces, you crazy person. But you've got to make sure that you've been hit with some shells, but you don't walk with the limp, right? You're not walking with the limp. You're not taking your past staff frustrations out upon your current staff. Now, I will reference this. This is a really critical story to understand the situation. So I was speaking to someone one day, and they misquoted this job, And I was part of the quoting process. I was like, this is going to take you this long. And they said, no, I've quoted at this. I was like, there's no way, right? I was like, okay, sweet. Like, I don't think so. Turns out it took them longer than they thought, because sometimes we can't always quote the best case scenario. And then I was like, you just got to cop that, because that's, maybe you can have a discussion, but not in this case. The discussion was had, the client was agreed. Yeah, it's all good. Go ahead at that point. And anyway, long story short, this person tried to make up the difference on the next one. This next one happened to be an external PowerPoint, and the client said, how much? And he said, $1,500. And, maybe it's not an external PowerPoint on the moon, which probably would cost $1,500. Like, it's a pretty rare residential occurrence that it's that, if it's off an existing circuit. As you guys know, I'm talking to the choir, I'm preaching to the choir here, but and then I was like, what the hell? Like, what do you mean? You've quoted the last ones at whatever you are, 275, 325, or something like that. And they're like, oh yeah, I was just trying to make up for that other one I stuffed up. And I just think, like, maybe you got to have these conversations. Maybe you got to be like, you can't just take things out on people just because you feel like it. And people aren't idiots. So make sure, if you've been hit with some shells, then maybe you can't do anything about that. You can't do anything about the job you misquoted 3 months ago. You can't do anything about the job, the staff you mishandled, or what you did in the past. But you can draw a line in the sand, and you can push forward in the future, and push forward into a business of profitability, push forward into a business of productivity, push forward into a business that you're happy to go to, that you're happy to put your name down to, that you're happy to push ahead with. You can push forward with staff that you want to go to work with clients that you want to go to work with. No one's twisting your arm to work for these people, unless they are twisting your arm, in which case you've got bigger issues than I thought. Am I right? But you've got to basically slow down, calm down, and you've got to reference, like, hey, I've been hit with a few shells, but I don't want to limp forward. I want to walk forward. I don't want someone else, or I don't want past mistakes, i.e. the shells that have been thrown at me, to stop me from walking into my future trade God ordained destiny of successful, productive, profitable business, right? So maybe to hit with some shells, maybe you got to let it go. Just let it go. All right, talking about 50 Cent part 8. Got a meal at the deal, and I'm still on the grind. He got a meal at the deal, and I'm still on the grind. 50 Cent got a meal at the deal, and he's still on the grind. You know why? Because he's 50 Cent and he loves to bump and grind. I'm sure he does. I'm sure of it. Are you sure of it? Bump and grind. What a time to be alive. Anyway, got a meal out of the deal. So my big thing pointed here is 50 Cent knew how much he got out of the deal. My question is, do you know how much you're getting out of every deal? Do you know how much you're getting out of every job, out of every day, out of every week? Do you know the numbers you should be hitting? In other words, the sort of target numbers, the target revenue, the target job profit for cost plus or service and maintenance or project. Do you know where you should be hitting? And then do you know where you are hitting? And one of the biggest things I'm about is billable hours. You guys will know that. Billable hours and efficiency. You're talking about, like, how many chargeable hours we're getting per week, and that's directly relative to the profit, right? That's what's going to happen. Generally speaking, you got a couple of ways to make money in your electrical business, solar business, aircon business. You've got labor rate. In other words, I charge 115 and it cost me 85. You've got labor efficiency. In other words, I charge 12, I did it in 8. That's where good quoting, good price book sort of comes into it. You've got plant and equipment sort of on costing, subcontractors on costing in terms of plant and equipment, in terms of, like, I rented out my core drill, rented out my scissor lift, rented out my digger. One of my friends was renting out an Azito mixer for $25. This is a landscaper. We were at 22, 23 at the time, and it was pretty funny. Azito, what a time to be alive. You got subcontractors in terms of, like a home automation company might go through you at 50 grand. You put 10% on it, 5% on it, 20% on it. You get the gist. Your money there, and you got materials, markup or margin. And you buy here, sell here. You've got that's your sort of 5 main avenues to make money, and it's really interesting, right? Because you're looking at it, and you're going like, holy crap, like, like you've got to know these numbers back to front. So we've just started this accelerated course where we run one every 2 weeks. We measure billable hours. There's 5 people in the room. It's amazing. Like you just basically sit there. Here's the targets I want to hit. Here's what I actually hit. And there's nothing quite like that knowledge of what's working and what's not working. It's absolutely. It doesn't amaze me because I've sat in the seat of quoting. Like, you only got to get one item wrong for the job to be cooked. You've only got to get, like, sometimes you can measure the job as a whole and the net profit might be correct, right? You might be like, oh, that was good. But you break down the actual items of the price book and it was like, hey, 1 or 2 of those items were significantly underpriced. Now, you might not notice it on a job that's $4,000 and you made 110% efficiency, or like, well, whatever. You might not notice it, right? But when you just get those 2 or 3 items that are wrong by themselves, maybe it's like, classic case example here for me is always wall fans, like exhaust fans. Exhaust fans, wall fans, generally speaking, I'm going to say most people are underpricing them. So when you get like 3 of them on the same day, you might measure that job and be like, oh, that was cooked. Like, what on earth happened to that? But the writing's been on the wall for so long, but you've been masking it. We really knew this. We know it's too low. But now it's been exposed because it's by itself. And I just think, like, you know, so much pain in business is self-inflicted. You've got to know where your money's coming from. You've got to know revenue, gross profit, net profit. Gross and net are such a critical part of growing the business and understanding how the business operates, because you can have a correct gross profit. You might look at your net profit and be like, what we netted at the end, like what we're left with at the end, oh, it was too low, 18%, raise your rates. And it was like, well, maybe I don't need to raise my rates. Maybe I need to have a process. Maybe I didn't charge variations. Maybe my operating expenses is too high. And so what we encourage you to do, and anyone coming onto our program, I'm a big believer that, like, the first thing you want to get right is your numbers. So we always focus up on a cost operations session and a session with me on our pricing playbook, which is probably the sickest spreadsheet I've ever created. And I've created some cool stuff, but it's just such a great way to sort of see your numbers right in front of you, your numbers, not your neighbour's numbers, not your mum's numbers. Hey, mum. My mum actually listens to every podcast, so hey, mum, how are you? But not your mum's numbers, not your best mate's numbers, not your partner's numbers, but your numbers. So it's like you look at it and you can see your numbers, and sometimes your numbers are wrong. And because there's a range of what they should be in. So it's like we can go, hey, if you tweak that, change that, adapted that, we can do this. So we look at that first and foremost. We call that the 2-pack or a 2-pack. And then we'd throw someone into the accelerated course where you measure these billable hours. It's super interesting, right? Like the most common thing we see is people pushing up in their net profit, say between 5 and 10%. I would say at worst case scenario. Most people are leaving something on the table. The best example I can share with you is that the switchboard is finished, but someone's got to get that big flathead screwdriver and just tighten the screws just a little bit, right? It's all in the hips. It's all in the hips. Happy Gilmore 2 coming out soon. What a time to be alive. It's all in the hips. Just tighten up a little bit. And, you know, if you're pushing $1 million turnover and you get an extra 5%, right, that's $50,000. $50,000. It's so interesting, right? Because it's like everyone wants to see that extra 50,000 end a year, extra 100,000 end a year. But the macro is in the micro, right? So you look at it and you want the big, but the big's in the small. So it's like if you've got a team of 5 people and you can get an extra $50 a day, whether that's out of labor rate, labor efficiency, materials, markup or margin, or something, or quoting or changing your price book, that's $250 a day for the 5 people, right? That's $1,250 a week. That's about $60,000 a year. So you want this? Everyone wants the 60. Give me the 60. Give me the 60 cent. Forget the 50 cent. Give me the 60 cent, right? How good 60 cent? That's like 6-minute abs, not 7, 6. 6-minute abs. Everyone wants the 6-minute abs, but we've got to go back to the 50s, right? To the 100s. So if you want the big, let's find the 20s, find the 50s, find the 100s, find the 200s. So, you know, it's interesting, right? So back to that point of everything starts with the numbers. You look at it and you're like, the numbers dictate everything to me. And you know, whether you're a numbers person or not a numbers person, it's kind of irrelevant to the point of like the getting your numbers correct back end in terms of, you know, working out your rates, and then front end in terms of how you're presenting that quoting and measuring them, like both sides. you go, holy crap, like this determines who I want to work for. Because sometimes you see people, and this is my biggest drama with like revenue-based measuring, and it's all for the sake of revenue. I can go out and find heaps more work tomorrow. I can boost my revenue. Is it profitable? I might be quoting and losing money. I might be pricing correctly but handling it not correctly. I might have to send my best people to my worst clients to try and make money. All of a sudden my good clients get my not so good people. I let them down, and what am I left with? I'm left with nothing at the end of it. Nada, nothing. Yesterday Phoenix asked me, my 6-year-old, he said, Daddy, what's nothing? Like, what do you mean when someone says nothing? And I was like, it's nothing. Nothing is nothing. Do you not understand me, Phoenix, when I told you? I said, nothing is nothing, right? So it's like nothing. Sometimes you can be left like trying to raise the business up to a certain point of revenue, and it's like, well, that job's not profitable. I chased that client up. They went with me because I was the cheapest price. I was the stray sheep and they were the wolf, right? So I've misquoted that. Now I've got to fill that cup with my best staff. So I've taken them across there. Now I've got Jimmy been here 2 months, and Jimmy been here 2 months is going to my best client, and they're like, yeah, I just drilled this hole in the spot. So another client's like, what's going on? Like, it used to be Greg, and then it used to be, Luke, and now Luke's over here, and I'm like, and then I'm just like, I'm imploding, I'm like trying to pay people, I'm like, where's the money? And it's like, because we focus on the wrong metric, right? If you focus on your metric, which is your numbers, if you get your numbers correct, if you work out what you need to be charging, if you work out how to manufacture those figures to a certain extent, because there is a range that they'll go in, and now if we work out what's working and what's not working, which is so critical, and now we've got a business foundations of the numbers where we can stack up on, where if we grow, we're going to grow properly and well. If I'm making money, I can pay staff more. And the whole thing for me was, when someone's like we were paying $45 an hour for a tradie in, 2012, 13, something like that. Like, and so it's really difficult for me to go like, okay, here, think about this. You probably make like 50 grand roughly off a tradie apprentice team. Let's just call it 50 grand for lack of better math, right? So you're making about, let's say you're making that much money, right? 50 grand. So it's like, if you were to pay someone 42 or 47, the $5 difference is $10,000. So if I said to you, hey, you can have an excellent person and you can make an extra $40,000 a year, what would you do? You'd be like, yeah, that sounds good. I was like, do you want to make 40 grand extra or 50? You'd be like, well, 50's better, but I'd take 40. It's like, cool. Well, don't quibble on the fives when that excellent person can come and bring something amazing into your company that they can stay around, not forever, because they're probably not going to stay forever. All right. But like, they might stay for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and you might build a great relationship. But don't quibble on the 2s and 3s when you're paying someone that can bring in extra revenue, extra profit into your business, right? Extra serviceability, which is a huge thing. One of the big things you see as people get busy, they start to push too far out. Once you push too far out, then you become like unusable. So a great example is this. You reach out to me for some coaching and I'm like, yeah, sweet. Well, how's your February? Like, what are you doing like February 13? You're like, that's too far away. I need help coming into Christmas. We're like, well, bam, let's get you in the accelerator. Let's get these hours measured. Let's get everything dialed in, sorted out. So my big thing is how much did you make off your last deal? Right? And what was happening in that last deal? Did you go in well? Were you well presented? Were you on a price book? Was it cost plus? Was it a 50-50 hybrid Chinese combination plate? Bit of chicken, bit of fried rice, bit of prawn, bit of beef, bit of something else. I don't even know what's going on in those things sometimes. Crazy times, right? So you're looking at it going, what did you get out of your last deal? What are you going to get out of your next deal? You've got to know this, forecast it, check it, correct it, update it, and then re-update it, and then rebuild it and build it. And that's the funnest part of business. Is you get to be like, it's a numbers game, yes, but it's a people game, yes, too. It's like, who are we working for? Who's working for us? Are they any good? What are the processes in place? Do they know what to do? Do they know the next steps? A bunch of stuff, right? So it's super interesting. Got a mill at the deal and I'm still on the grind. If Fiddy's still on the grind, I encourage you to be still on the grind, right? But you've got to know your numbers. The most important foundation you set is that numbers situation, right? You've got to know that, because if we're pricing well, then we're attracting the right clients and the right people to work with us and partner with us into the future. 50 Cent, yo. G-Unit.